He says we are making changes, but as we do so under conditions not of our choosing. I think that's quite an important observation. There's nothing communist about it. It's just an observation as to how society evolves and how we do things. We're doing things under conditions not of our choosing. That's what frames your budget. The global conditions, the domestic conditions, which as Treasury are conditions not of our choosing. We've got to find how do we navigate those conditions. And I think that's what is confronting us. That we couldn't predict what would happen if the system is disrupted. By the way, how long? I must be careful.
We've got time, 30 minutes ending.
Oh, okay. I should be careful. Politicians, when they see people like this, they think that is an election time and campaigning. So, here is the GNU. First and foremost, nobody predicted before the elections that we are likely to have that outcome. And therefore, no one planned for working what constitutes a coalition government. Lesson. We learn as we're going along, we're beginning to learn. Among other things was an absence of a framing of what is going to be an appropriate coalition government platform. And an absence of that manifested itself during the course of the year, of the budget. An example of the issues that were being fought around the budget had nothing to do with the substance of the budget, had everything to do with the disagreement of the parties on certain policy positions, whether you call the Expropriation Act, the Bella Act, and so on and so on. And that manifested itself in the budget process, in the budget process. Then we've got to learn how to navigate that. And I think all parties have learned a huge lesson that we ourselves have learned to say, how do we make sure that we can consult as much as possible. For instance, as we're going to table this medium-term budget policy statement, the President had a meeting, the media called it a secret meeting, whereas he calls these meetings with leaders on a regular basis. Deputy Minister, you can come in. You were welcomed in your absence. Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry. So it was not a kind of a secret meeting. The President called these meetings on a regular basis with leaders of the opposition, not opposition, of the government of national unity. And in most of those occasions, that's why I'm normally invited to make a presentation in those meetings. In this particular circumstance, for instance, when they met in that place, They called me to a meeting. I couldn't go because I was stuck in Cape Town. So both the DG and myself had to address, make a presentation of the medium-term budget policy statement. That's why you will see that yesterday, virtually all members of the Government of National Unity were on the same page in supporting the budget. Not a single member of the Government of National Unity took a different turn. What was interesting was also some of those were not part of the Government National Unity, like the Action SA and ACDP also were positive. So it is that consultation which we're beginning to learn, but there are also some challenges with the consultation process, because some of the budget information is market sensitive. In the process of consultation, things leak. Things leak, as Kulegani here phoned me and says, I've got a reliable source that you are going to have inflation target, you are going to change inflation targeting on Wednesday. And the source was correct in one point on that point. That's the source. But the source went further and said, no, I've been persuaded by Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. and locked ourselves to between 4, with the base being 4%. So for the next 2 years, we'll probably be, wages will be sticky in that sense. But we're coming into that thing. This Director General is creative. It's not me. I don't want the unions to hate me. They are my friends. This Director General is creative. We're coming into it in a number of ways. First, we're dealing with what is called OSD, Occupation-Specific Dispensation, which is beginning ballooning, pay progression, which is ballooning. For instance, it differs. The Army, the pay progression is 2%. In other institutions, 1.5%. We're beginning to claw back on some of all of those. Mm-hmm. In addition, we are talking about early retirement. It's going to achieve 2 objectives. The first one is to rejuvenate the public sector. The second one, it will have an impact on the headcount. Mm-hmm. Linked to it is the targeted responsible saving in all those organizational changes I was talking about. So over time, while we have that sticky issue in terms of the wage bill until further negotiations, there are issues on the wage bill we can claw back, which will make sure that the wage bill does not necessarily escalate unnecessarily.
Got you. Managing those particular costs and, of course, exercising a level of restraint. Minister, another theme I'd like to touch on just before we go to the audience is, of course, looking at growth. As we do see a revision of the growth forecast, slightly lower than what many of the other institutions, like the BER or even the SABC themselves, have shared in terms of objectives. And there is still concern within the South African investment community that we're not doing enough to really invest fully in the catalytic growth drivers of the country. Your response to that?
The accusation cut both ways. The Business Day carried an article which says business themselves are keeping about 2 trillion rand as cash, not investing it in productive capacity. We may take the blame to the extent that people may say, we're not investing because you guys are not behaving. Okay.
Confidence is what they often refer to.
No, I mean, we need to have a conversation about that. Mm-hmm. What are these issues? You know, I hear every day people talking about policy problems and so on and so on. If you ask me, I would like to know about them. So that, let's have that conversation, because we would like to see investment in the economy, remove all those bottlenecks which are making it difficult for people to invest in this economy. Are we able to have a conversation along those lines? An example, I was just asking Prof. Christine from BER. I said, when you guys talk about the confidence, what are some of these issues? Some of these issues really need conversation. People are saying, no, but you guys are not taking decision. And one of them was, when are you going to take a decision what are you going to take a decision about the public,
public procurement?
No. Shamila Baton.
NPA.
Now, those are the issues. I would say, but can people not really lose confidence because a decision of that nature has not yet been cleared? All I'm trying to say is that, can we have a conversation? What are these issues which are making business not invest? We are recovering, we accept that. Our institutions have been hollowed. State capture period. To actually think that you can come out of that fairly easily by merely a decree is not an easy thing. What is coming out in the Madlanga Commission is clearly a demonstration of how the security cluster has been hollowed over during that period. Mm-hmm. And used for purposes other than combat crime. So you can see that coming out in the Madlanga Commission is a product of the state capture period. And we accept that those are the things we need. we must shoulder the blame. You say, no, period. It was an ANC period. Finish. We must accept and take responsibility. That as the ANC during the period, we dropped the.
Got you. Minister, I'm aware that we're under pressure for time. Yourself and the Director General do have to leave to participate in investor roadshows, but I am quite keen to take just 2 brief questions from the floor. If we could keep them brief and concise. Your hand has gone up, sir. A colleague will bring a microphone. We've got your hand. Kulegani, I see you. I see the Minister looking away as I mention your name. I'm teasing. He's probably used to your questions. No problem. We'll assist you with a pen shortly. So if you could go ahead with your question. We've got the other mic over there. Kulegani will come to you as well, just to squeeze 3 questions. We'll take them back to back in the interest of time and get the Minister's feedback from you.
Minister, good morning. My name is Shane Watkins. I'm the Chief Investment Officer of All Weather Capital. It's a great honor to ask you a question, and I want you to know that I think all of us are very proud to have you as our Finance Minister, and congrats on your budget. My question relates to tax policy priorities. National Treasury has spent an inordinate amount of time looking at how they tax collective investment schemes. Now, the savings industry is fundamental to investment in our country, and it's the one functional area of our economy that I think really works and is constructive. Uncertainty there is not helpful. On the other hand, we have the online gaming industry. Now, the online gaming industry, it's estimated, consumes up to 1% of South African GDP. I think we're like a 7 trillion economy, so it's about 70 billion per annum that this industry is extracting. Some surveys indicate that between 25% and a third of NSFAS grants and government support grants go into this industry. The shareholders of this industry live offshore. This is an industry that is essentially funded by the South African taxpayers.
Yep.
And I wonder what you guys can do about it, because it's a real concern, and in my opinion, it's a very corrosive thing in our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Watkins. Appreciate your question. We'll come to your questions next, sir, followed by Kulegani.
All right. Good morning, Minister. My name is Mkokeli Bandla from SABC News. My question is going to be a brief one on transparency and public trust. Minister, public trust in how government spends money remains low due to perceptions of corruption and waste. How does this budget, Minister, strengthen transparency and public confidence in how funds are managed? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bandla. Appreciate your question. Kulegani, if the mic could move forward, and then we'll have your question. Fantastic.
Thank you, Minister, for your time and forbearance. I'm interested in asking about the targeted and responsible savings initiative in the platform. It's a 3-pronged question, to be honest, and do forgive me if this has been stated in the lockup yesterday. But I'm interested in finding out, first of all, is there a medium-term ballpark figure in terms of the kind of savings that the initiative would like to secure, first of all. Second of all, I'm interested in the R in TARS, which is responsible, and trying to find out if there is technical capacity within National Treasury to ensure that the savings are indeed responsible and not quite as dire as what we've arguably seen from Doge, for example. And then thirdly, where do the savings go once they're secured? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Solid questions that we have from all of our participants. Minister, I'm aware that you might have the opportunity to direct some of the responses perhaps to members of National Treasury. So if there is another mic available, perhaps we can bring it closer to the floor. But perhaps let's start off with Kulegani's question, specifically focused on the targeted and responsible savings. 3 objectives that he highlighted there regarding a medium-term ballpark figure, the responsible, how that is measured, and of course, outcomes as to where the savings will go. You keen to respond to this, Minister?
Can I do it the other way around?
Sure.
Let me deal with the other questions and ask the DG to deal with the TARS.
Got you. In the meantime, we'll just make sure that a microphone is available for the Director General.
The DG will deal with that. Let me check with the tax policy and investment schemes.
Behind you.
It is true that National Treasury published regulations which we intend to do that. And the fear from the collective investment schemes is that it may attack what they call the capital gains and then therefore destroy the industry completely. I've had that. The discussion I've had with the team yesterday is that they pull back. They're having a workshop with you early in the year to discuss this particular matter. So I think we'll just park it there for now.
Online gambling?
I'm coming to online gambling. Online gambling, we've got a discussion paper we wanted to publish yesterday. The DG is looking at me because I'm the one who pulled back a bit. We published on yesterday discussion paper because we want to say something in February on it. But my colleague, the Minister of Trade and Industry, was in Egypt. So I wanted to make sure that before we publish that, we're aligned with the Minister of Trade and Industry. It's an issue where we feel strongly as well as you do. There's a complicating factor, though, is that gambling for taxing is a provincial competence. The question how we're going to manage it, that's why it's going to be critical that we work with the Department of Trade and Industry in dealing with it. Mpumalanga is already beginning to go in that direction. Mm-hmm. So we will be having a discussion with my colleague. I did raise it with him. We're in a function together yesterday. That's a matter we need to wrap up fairly soon. Transparency in, I think one of the things we said in this budget, the DG may add, we said we published yesterday a portal whose main purpose is to publish all tenders, the suppliers, everybody, and so on, for the public to know who has got what tender. I even used an example when I was delivering the speech, and then the EFF screamed at me, and the MK, they must have drowned it, and people did not hear what I was saying. Because I said, for instance, if you look at the Tembisa Hospital problem, what the people in Tembisa Hospital did, the regulations say you can't issue a tender. You should not issue a tender for anything below 500,000. Anything below 500,000, you can simply ask for 3 quotes. So what they were doing was to slice tenders into less than 499,000, 499,000, so that they should not meet that threshold. And in the process, then ask for 3 quotes, and corrupt activity took place and developed the syndicate in that. I'm saying that portal we're publishing now is going to be able to reveal that and throw a red flag around such practices. Mm-hmm. So that's the, some of the things we're doing for transparency. DG, you can take that point further and also talk about TAS.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning.
Director General, just as a polite request, if you could please join us on stage, or perhaps stand up and face that way, as my colleagues in the media and those online would be able to see you.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Minister. Good morning, everyone. So I think, Minister, you've covered the issue of the procurement dashboard. Just to say that at the moment, what we have on the dashboard is all the information from the payment system. Most provinces are covered, with the exception of provincial legislatures. Most public entities are covered, and most national departments are there as well. Anyone who's not covered will be covered by an instruction note that we issued this week. So eventually, from next year onwards, all of that payments information will be public. It's downloadable, it's searchable, so everyone can see exactly which payments are being made to whom, so that we usher in a new generation of transparency, and to the Minister's point and to your question, public accountability for public spending. In terms of TARS, Kulakani, to your question, we've indicated that in this fiscal framework, we are penciling in 6.7 billion in savings over the next 3 years coming out of TARS. That's mainly because of the scaling down of one program that has proven to be very ineffective in many parts, which is the Public Transport Network Grant. The second aspect of it is savings due to in the social grant system. because of the efforts that ourselves, SASSA and DSD have made around dealing with social grant fraud through greater levels of verification of social grant beneficiaries, essentially exiting people from the system that shouldn't be getting access to social grants. To give you an example, when the department this year did an audit of 55,000 social grant beneficiaries, they found that around 4,000 of those beneficiaries out of the sample of 55,000 were not entitled to receive those social grants. And so that will, as that work intensifies and those verification exercises happen, that will increase. We plan to make further announcements at the time of the budget, to your point, beyond the 6.5. At this stage, it's very difficult to say what those will be, partly because, to your point about responsible, this is informed by detailed technical work. So the idea is there are detailed spending reviews that we do with GTAC, the Government's Technical Advisory Centre, which is housed in the Treasury, to make sure that the proposals that are made to the Ministers in Committee on the Budget is informed by evidence and is done in a responsible way. Your final question, I think, was about, let me just double check here, Ostaz, where the funds go. Where funding go is always a function of the fiscal framework, the decision of the Minister and the decision of Cabinet as presented to Parliament. So we'll never preempt where savings are directed. We make proposals on where savings should be directed to the Minister and to the Ministers' Committee on the Budget. They then take it to Cabinet. They confirm that decision or change it and then take it to Parliament. So that is the subject of every budget process in February, in October next year, and so on. Thanks.
Thank you so much, DG, for the responses to those questions. I have invited the online audience to participate in the Q&A, and there are 2 questions that have come through, Minister, so we'll take those and then get your concluding remarks from there. The first one actually speaks to the decrease in debt and the objectives and targets you've set out for 2026-2027. The question asks, does the expected decrease in debt to GDP by 2026-27 onwards include a newly acquired loan from the World Bank of just over $925 million US? That's the first question. The second question relates to the fact that we are reflecting on the unemployment figures that were published earlier this week, for the 3rd quarter of this year, highlighting that just over 17 million South Africans have been absorbed into the job market. And it actually speaks, if you could actually share a word of encouragement to the other disencouraged employees in South Africa. But let's start off on the debt question. Does this include a loan from the World Bank of over $900 million US?
Debt reduction is not about reducing a specific loan. It's about the global picture, which may include debt redemptions, which may include reduced borrowing. That's what debt reduction does not talk to a specific World Bank loan. No. We may decide not to, because of the level of debt, our deficit may be low in such a manner that we're not going to be borrowing more than normal, and therefore you reduce your stock of debt. So it's not about the World Bank loan. The World Bank loan has got a term. I remember the first one I signed when I joined government was a loan from the World Bank, 3-year pay and holiday, whatever, which means for 3 years we're not going to pay. And therefore, also 300 basis points below market price. Why would I not take such a loan? You see what I mean? So it has got its own time. It doesn't mean I'm going to reduce the World Bank. I'm sure this person has got a specific gripe with the World Bank. Whereas we're talking about the global picture of the debt. Maybe you can add, DG. Yeah.
Got you. To close off with, Minister, you've shared and been very open in terms of the feedback that you've given us. So we appreciate the level of confidence and transparency that has been highlighted. I guess as we prepare to get you off stage, perhaps your final message to South Africans, those who are economic contributors, as we see in the room, those who perhaps might still be disgruntled within the workforce, given the unemployment figures that we see, and of course your reflections on S&P and their anticipated review of South Africa's rating by the end of this week.
Yeah, let me just say, our fundamental challenge is growth. And I've said even debt is a function of growth. If the economy is growing, your capacity to service that debt is enormous. So our focus as South Africans is how do we grow this economy? And that requires not only the public sector, it requires also the private sector. What we have been doing in a small way is to attract the private sector to invest in the public infrastructure. In so doing, we think that they will also invest elsewhere. So the key is how do we promote that investment into productive capacity so that we should grow the economy, grow employment. Once we do that, everything else just follows. Whether it's employment numbers, whether it's income, whether it's poverty, all of those things will follow. So we should be focusing our minds around how do we grow this economy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a conversation all of us should have together, not only a government. We should do that. If we can do that and also unlock that 2 trillion that is sitting out there from private sector, which is not being invested in productive capacity. But it can only happen once we know what are these challenges so that all of us can work together. So the fundamental issue we're promoting in this budget is growth. Secondly, we're then promoting efficiency in government spending. Thirdly, we're reducing the cost of borrowing for the investment and for households. And that on its own is critical for all of us and reducing that cost of living. So that's the message we're sending to South Africans and say, let's work together. We're turning the corner. We need the cooperation of every South African citizen to travel this journey.
Minister of Finance in South Africa, Mr. Enoch Godongwana, thank you so much for your openness and encouragement into growing the economy going forward and providing the confidence that the audience and market does need in such turbulent times given the global dynamics. Thank you again for your time, sir.
Yeah, thank you and congratulations for the tender.
Thank you so much, Minister. I can officially declare that there's full transparency in terms of the disclosure of this particular tender. So there are no concerns at all. To the Minister, to the Director General, the Deputy Minister as well, thank you so much. And Deputy Minister within the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, thank you for your time and, of course, engagement here today. I am aware that you all are participating in investment roadshows, so we will be mindful of the sensitivities given your time and potential exits you might have to make during the duration of the program today. However, many of you are here. I'm trusting that you have a renewed level of confidence, understanding, and clarity that many of the key issues that have been highlighted that impact South Africans, the economy, the tax base, the direction in terms of making sure that fiscal consolidation is something that we attain and actually achieve is a clear objective of not only National Treasury, but government at large. There are many more themes, though, that we do want to deep dive into. Understanding how this helps us compare to our global counterparts, especially when it comes to the emerging market space. What is happening on our fixed income environment, and of course the heightened level of capital that we do see as investment in our debt. But what does this also mean when it comes to the day-to-day interactions we have as South Africans at the coalface, where municipalities aren't functioning, where we continue to see constraints within the various institutions that the Minister has alluded to regarding the ability to ensure that our capital is adequately allocated to unlock value for us as South Africans. This is where we're going to participate in a panel discussion with 3 esteemed speakers, all of whom have a wealth of experience within the investment,